Somebody had asked me a really good question recently, and it's going to make for hopefully a good video that I'm getting ready to share with you right here today. They said, Joe, what are 5 things that you could not live without in prison? And, being so far separated from the time that I served, it's been about 10 years since I was released. This year actually makes a decade I've been out come this October. Thinking back that far back to when I was serving time, the many times that I did, to the things that I couldn't live without, things that I look at today and absolutely take for granted, like I'm sure a lot of people do. 5 things that you can't live without in prison, which is crazy to think because at least when I was serving time, obviously it's a lot different nowadays. There was only but so much that you could get. The zooms and whams, the commissary, the very limited personal property items such as like your TV. Now all of a sudden there's JP4 players and tablets and, things are definitely moving forward. So let's talk about 5 things that I personally could not live without in prison. And man, this ought to be 10 things. But we'll do a part 2 if it turns out to be something really good. Boy, just thinking about prison. Thinking back to how crazy it was, how hectic it was, how loud it was, how much it stunk and smelled bad, and 5 smells that you can't help but to have smelt while in prison. Oh, the smell of ammonia. If you know, you know. Number 1 making this list, what would be like the number 1 item? And forget that. Let's start with number 5 and we'll work down to number 1. It's been a long time since your boy done a list video. So the number 5 item that I couldn't live without in prison was my television. Let's just use that. I was fortunate enough to have my own personal television where I was housed in prison in the state of Virginia. We were allowed to buy televisions. They still are. We could buy a 13-inch flat screen TV for about $220. But there were other things that you needed with that: a surge protector, an antenna if you were somewhere that didn't have cable. If you couldn't afford an antenna would then be provided for. I don't know why I'm trying to make that sound like a court-appointed lawyer. No, but if you couldn't afford an antenna, you were using a paper clip until you could afford an antenna. But a TV, Joe with the ADD, HD, which is actually an interesting thing that gets brought up right there, HD TV. At one particular prison I was at, they had 80 cable channels on the TV. We had everything from Discovery Channel, TLC, the Disney Channel. Don't know why they had that. I guess it was just a part of the cable package. FX. AMC, gosh almighty, man. To go from a prison like that with 80 channels on the TV to the next prison that I would be transferred to, Indian Creek, where they didn't even have cable and you needed an antenna, and it went from 80 channels on the TV to about 10 to 14, and 2 of those channels were PBS. Ain't nobody in prison watching PBS except for your boy Joe. Because Bob Ross actually came on PBS. Yeah, we had 2 different PBS channels. The Virginia version and the North Carolina version, because we were pretty close to the state line. And it was only on that North Carolina version where they played Bob Ross and like 2 other painting shows. How gangster is it to be sitting in prison watching Bob Ross? Got to be at least a little bit more gangster than sitting in prison watching Dance Moms or something on the Disney Channel. You ever walk by a guy's bunk area in prison and see that son of a bitch watching Finding Nemo? Certainly will make you wonder. But yeah, definitely coming in at number 5 has to be the TV. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase my own. If you're not fortunate enough, you've got the day room television. Some places have 2 different TVs. In a lot of those cases, the TV stays on one of only a handful of channels. BET, ESPN, and usually it's one of those 2 if you've got those channels. And if you don't, well, if you ain't a fan of rap music or sports, man, you're going to have a bad time in prison. But Joe, I was at a place where they kept CMT on the TV. I've actually been to places like that too. Yeah. So if you're not a fan of rap music, sports, or country music, imagine not liking music at all or sports. Boy, prison's going to be a miserable experience for you. Why the TV is so important? Because of bid mode. Bid mode is what you have to be in when you're serving time, especially at the early onset of your time. However much time that you have when you first begin that time, the TV can often be a great way to escape. Don't get me wrong. With the good comes the bad. With the pros come the cons of it. You'll see things on the TV that will remind you of that girl who hasn't written to you in a long time or answered the phone, let alone put any money on the phone. You know, there's going to be the things that remind you of the past. However, the TV is going to be the one thing that you can kind of just escape through, proverbially. We're not talking about trying to get over no razor wire, boss. Just talking about watching a good old television show. I remember some of the TV shows that I used to watch the most. The following unbelievably slept on classic with Kevin Bacon. The TV show Empire with Jussie Smollett. I wonder what he's doing these days. The television is definitely going to be something you can't live without. I couldn't live without it because it was how I bid. You know, one of the ways when it's after rack and it's in the evening time, right before you're about to lay it down, man, you want to be able to watch that TV when the sports are on. You want to be able to meal up with your homeboys and, you know, watch the Super Bowl or watch the playoffs or watch the finals. TV, definitely number 5. Coming in at number 4. What would be the number 4 thing that I couldn't live without in prison? Still up toward the top of the list, so certainly not as important as anything mentioned near the 1s and the 2s here. For me, I'm going to have to say the music. Absolutely the music. Just like the television, you know, it can be good and bad. There's going to be music that helps you get through your time that you can relate to. There's songs that I hear today that remind me completely of prison. Oh, I've been traveling this road too long, just trying to make it back. Dead and gone. I forgot like half of the words to that song. Hey, yo, ever had one of those days wish you would have never woke up? Yeah, man. Hey, that dead and gone, that was a big one. You got to imagine, I was locked up through prime Lil Wayne time. What year was that? 2008? 2000? I believe it was 2007. When Lil Wayne dropped like 3 or 4 different mixtapes and had like 300 songs, you know, that he had done or something like that. There's a lot of Lil Wayne songs that I hear that remind me of serving time. She wanna lick me like a lollipop. Could you imagine being on a prison rec yard watching some of a bitch like Peaches walking around singing that shit? Lollipop. Can't even barely open his mouth to formulate the words because the frickin' the Skittle lipstick got his lips stuck together, or maybe it's something else. Yo, the music, man. This goes back to the early days of Joe's incarceration back in 2008, 2009, 2010. I'm sitting in jail. The only thing you could really get was the radio because there was only a pod TV, a day room TV. That shit stayed on BET or some dumbass shit that I ain't watched, like soap operas. You know, so the radio was how I escaped. Matter of fact, I was like Warren from that movie, Something About Mary. It's behind your ear. Suplex. Boom. Gosh almighty. Something About Mary. Something about that movie, man. Yeah, man. I say that I was like that dude from Something About Mary, the special needs individual. Because I was like walking around with like the earmuffs on, except they weren't earmuffs. They were earbuds from the jail radio. You know, we do these visits with individuals who are incarcerated now through the video visits, and they're talking to us through these janky earbuds with the receiver on them so that they could speak through them. Man, those things were trash. I mean, clearly the ones that they're getting now to be able to use the tablets still are. But even the ones that came with the radio, they were really bad. But, you know, you fixed them when they broke and you made sure that they always worked because when you got that radio, that was how you got up out of that place. You know, I remember radio shows that I would listen to like Coast to Coast that came on at like midnight and played all through the night. That was like ASMR to me in jail. Can you imagine listening to ASMR while locked up? Hearing some shit like, shh. some mouse sounds, and then you wake up and you look to your side and it's really Cherry right beside you, and it's not what you were hearing through the radio. Hey, that some bitch right beside your bunk area talking about, yeah, I touched that white boy butt. True story, it really happened to me, unfortunately. This guy said that he touched my butt while I was asleep while I was locked up this one time. The radio, man, hey, coast to coast, that was how you got through the time. That's how Joe did it first. Listening to these songs that would become forever immortalized, like forever etched in my brain, that anytime that I hear them throughout the rest of my life, I'll always remember the first place I was when I heard that. Dead and Gone by T.I. I will never forget the first time that I heard that song. I had just received my damn time, or maybe not. Maybe it was I had just received the news from the girl that she was gone. Oh, I've been traveling this road too long. Yeah, man, that's probably actually more like what it was. The radio. Some guys bit off of the Love Below, the Keith Sweat's radio show. Your girl would call into the radio station. Hey, yeah, let's go out a little Dookie thing. Let them know, hey, I'm still holding it down out here. I'm still holding it down out here, yeah. Oh shit, I ain't even hang up the phone though. I love you, little Dookie Stain. Number 3. Jesus. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I hope you're enjoying this. If you haven't done so, consider hitting the like button for me. Leave a comment. Go ahead and subscribe. Turn on bell notifications. You don't ever want to miss what I've got coming for you guys. Number 3. What couldn't I live without? We're in the middle right here, so this one's going to be really important. Wreck. Yeah, number 3 on this list, Wreck. That was really important, especially in prison when you could get it. Some places you would be at, you could get wrecked 3 times a day. I mean, it's not even like you're really doing time because you're spending so much time outside. You ain't got no choice but to take in that fresh air, go out there, work out, take care of yourself, get involved with sports, walk the track, work out, kick it with your homeboys, pass contraband, watch wild shit take place, dudes getting they shit split out on the rec yard, take in a good softball game, take in a good basketball game, get down with the sports that you get down with, play horseshoes, interact with individuals who aren't in the same building as you, and there ain't nothing like summertime evening rec in prison. Man, it's this ambiance, like the way that the sun's setting behind the guard towers and the razor wire fence. It's almost picturesque. And when you're in prison, there ain't nothing better than to be out on that rec yard in the evening time, in the summertime, during some rec. Like I said, it's a major way to get your mind up out of there. It's a great way to do your time and to take care of yourself, like in all facets. Mentally and physically. And it's a wild thing to be in prison and watch a guy who never goes to rec. A guy who never goes to rec is a guy that's not doing good time. That time is whooping his ass. It's doing him. And there's probably a reason why he's not going to rec. He's either some fat, lazy son of a bitch who's guaranteed to be paying somebody for protection, or he's having problems out on the rec yard. The gangs is at him. There's a beef out there that he ain't trying to go see, but sometimes that beef will come to you. If you don't want to come outside, oftentimes they will come to you. So you might as well just go out there and deal with it. But rec, most certainly. As I'm filming this video, I can hear birds chirping outside, and man, bringing me back, man. Almost makes me want to go commit like a felony, Shit, number 2. What would be coming in at the second most important thing that I couldn't live without in prison? A hustle. Got to have a hustle. For me, for a long time, it was tattooing. For a long time, it was the flicks, selling pen pals. There were a bunch of different hustles that I had. And there's a bunch of different hustles that you can have. A parlay, a store box, just so many different hustles. But having a hustle, no matter what it is, you can't live without it. A hustle is going to allow you to put items in your commissary box that you otherwise may not have, especially if you don't have any support from the outside. If you don't have any support from the outside, in my opinion, the number one thing that you can't live without is a hustle. But I'm putting hustle at number 2, and I got no idea what I'm going to put at number 1. So you're going to have to stay tuned to see what I think of here. And as I'm sharing this with you guys, you think of, the number 1 thing that you couldn't live without in prison, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what that would be for you. A hustle is going to get you full up, potentially. It's going to give you that thrill and exhilaration that you might otherwise not have in prison, because stimulation in prison is, well, nowadays, with the fact that prisoners are smoking wasp spray, and all of a sudden that's Spice or K2 or Flocka or some shit. The videos of these exorcisms that I'm seeing coming out of prison nowadays, it doesn't seem fun, but everybody's chasing after that stimulation, because prison oftentimes feels like a simulation. Stuck in the matrix, sitting there looking at the same 4 gray walls day in and day out. It is a sensory deprived situation. So having the rush, the exhilaration of doing something that if you get caught, you're going to get in trouble. But when you're doing your time, you're not thinking about that. So what? It's just a ticket. It's a 200 series charge. Maybe it's a 100. I don't care. The risk is worth the reward. Up until that original release date comes up and you done tricked it up because you did get in trouble and you lost that, and you still got to sit your ass down for another 3 to 6 months. There ain't nothing fun about that. My original release date was in July of 2015. Yeah, I could have been out in the height of the summertime. Do you know how dumb I felt when that original release date rolled around, and knowing that my new release date was October the 13th? Summertime was over. A hustle. It's going to help your time go by. Certainly is. Number 1. What is the number 1 thing I couldn't live without in prison? You could say coffee, hygiene items. I was actually thinking about that. But, if you've got the hustle, you've got all of the perks. You've got the salmon packs. You got the tunas and the sausages. The number 1 thing that I couldn't live without in prison. Oh, God. Ugh. I hate that I'm about to do this to you, but Joe being like freaking, Shakespearean, I got to go there with some shit that's probably going to come across as whack. But I'll say it. Peaches. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Punk tattoo guy. Cherry. Delicious. No, seriously, though. All jokes aside, that could actually be on somebody's number 1. A boy in prison. Some of that space cadet ussy, if you get my drift. The number 1 thing that I personally could not live without in prison was hope. I know that it sounds silly, but it's the truth. I've talked about this before. When you talk about the most important thing to have in prison, hands down to me, it is hope. Without hope, there is only rope. Meaning your ass is probably going to hang it up. I don't give a damn if you doing life. I don't give a damn if you've got a capital punishment sentence. You know what that's going to end with. No matter how bad your situation is, there is always hope. And if you don't have hope, you don't have nothing. And you could have nothing and still have hope, and you got something at least. The hope that this will happen. And usually that this is all about things getting better. The hope that I'm going to see that release date. And when I do, I'm going to be able to go home and do it different, do it better, never have to come back here. I hope that I never come back here. I hope that that girl writes me or comes to see me or does this video visit with me. I hope that that money receipt hits so that I can go to the store this week. I hope that they didn't run out of ramen noodles by the time I go to order my commissary. I hope all of these things. God, I sound like Reverend Al Sharpton, except not that at all. Not that at all. Yo, hope's an important thing to have, man. And for me, it was the most important. I remember when I was at my most hopeless, I was sitting in the jail, back in isolation, still awaiting trial, having no idea what was going to happen to me. I didn't have nobody Nobody, not a pen pal, not anything, not a friend in the world, no commissary, no idea how long I was going to be locked up for. And I was at my worst back then. That was the one time in my life that I can honestly say I had no hope. Until this one day when this silly little thing happened. You know, back in isolation during this time, you couldn't even have books. You couldn't have shit. Maybe you get the Bible. And for some people, that does it for them. Getting that one thing and that being the Bible, and they read that and boom, all of a sudden, hey, things are different for me now. I found God. For me, that never really did it for me. Just calling for what it is. I tried many times to make that my thing. But this one day, I get this book. I will never forget this for as long as I live. And it's crazy because in the beginning of this video, I had mentioned that, the things that would make this list are probably things that are oftentimes taken for granted and forgotten about. And sure as shit, completely forgotten about until I'm sharing them with you right here in this video. I'm sitting back in isolation, eating toothpaste to try to kill the hunger pains. I'm at my worst. I got 15 or 1,300 milligram Seroquels that I shoved up my ass to get back here because, hey, that was my escape button, the game over, and just be done with it. Did I ever tell you that's how I got those Seroquels back into the hole? I mean, because you're not getting them back there no other way. They're strip searching you like there's nothing you're going to be able to do with them. So you better stick your thumb up your ass. This guy passes me this book one day while I'm in isolation, or maybe he leaves and somehow I end up with the book. The book was called Chicken Soup for the Prisoner's Soul. You ever read a chicken soup book? They're just like stories of inspiring tales. I don't want to take anything away from this book or make light of it in any way because this particular book was what did it for me. And to be honest with you, it wasn't even the stories that were in the book. Because Joe got the ADHD and I got that shit big time. So to sit in isolation and look at a bunch of pages with words all over them, of course I tried to read this and I did read this, but that's not what did it at all for me. There were cartoons in this book, drawings, pictures. And I can tell you right now, the artist who drew these cartoons, his name was Matt Mattio, I believe is his name. Chicken Soup for the Prisoner's Soul. Somebody's literally trying to sell this book for $80. Are you out of your freaking mind? You can get this book for as cheap as next to nothing, $5, less than that. I want to find the guy. His name is Matt Mattio or Matteo. There he is right there, son of a bitch. Matt Mattio, an established artist, author of 2 widely published cartoon series, a book illustrator, and an adult tutor. He's in Pennsylvania. This guy's locked up. I think he was doing a life sentence. Matt Mattio. That is him right there. Why can't I find his artwork? There he is right there. Oh, Matt Mattio. An artist in Pennsylvania has contributed the fruits of his creative genius to many of our Tom Lagana's and Laura's projects. Yeah, man. Matt Mattio's photo gallery. Let's see if we can find this. Wow, he's done a lot of artwork. You really can't see this. But I just wanted to show his cartoon style. I'll have to look for that. I was sitting back in isolation and somebody handed me the book. It was called Chicken Soup for the Prisoner's Soul. I ran across the guy Matt Mattio in there who did all of these cartoons in the book. And they were just cartoons about serving time in prison. And I thought that they were the greatest damn thing in the world. And it was back in isolation at my worst when I found that guy and the artwork that he was doing in prison, serving, I believe, a life sentence. And he became the biggest inspiration to me overall in terms of my creative way. And I started creating cartoons back in isolation with nothing. I had a flex pen and a roll of toilet paper. I was creating my first cartoons, I'll never forget this, on a roll of toilet paper, thinking to myself, what if I could get my cartoons and my artwork published as well while I'm incarcerated? Just like this guy, Matt Mattio. And that, folks, was where my hope was born from. That would ultimately carry over to me here today. Wild to think and crazy to share with you guys. Yeah, so that is the number one most important thing to have in prison, and it was for me especially, and that was hope. Just wanted to share that with you. Hey, look, that's it. Hey, I hope this was a video you guys enjoyed. If it was, please leave a like and a comment on this, letting me know exactly what you thought about this. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!